What's up, my fellow small business supporters? I'm Savvy, and welcome back to Savvy Writes Books. I hope you're having a fantastic Monday today. Today, we are going to be doing a wrap-up / get ready with me video. As a lot of you guys know, on the Your Morning Guru channel, which is my second channel linked in the description below, on that channel, my friend RK Gold and I run a podcast, live stream, daily morning show where we live the lives of various business gurus, follow their morning routines, take their advice, learn about what they're all about, and try to see if we have anything we can gain from them. Frequently on this channel, I do wrap-ups about those because often the show might air too early for some people, or some people might not have been able to catch all the episodes. But over the past month, we have lived as Gary Vaynerchuk, we have lived as Seth Godin, and we have lived as Dave Ramsey, who is currently the subject of my deep dive or Deep Dave series on my Friday videos right now. So if you want to hear about some of the things that we learned from living life as these gurus over the past month, then
get you some nuts.
There was lots of memes.
Makes me wonder if I should take up lesbianism.
Chicago. You guys asked for it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome for the first time. This is Savvy Writes Books, the channel where we talk about books and business. Today, we are going to be, doing a brief review of a couple of books, talking about business a little bit, and talking about some gurus. And while we do that, I am going to be doing a Get Ready With Me with the Lizzie McGuire palette, because I'm going to be filming other videos, and this is my favorite palette right now, so let's make this happen. So the last wrap-up video I did about the Your Morning Guru show and the lives we've been living was covering when we lived as Marie Kondo and Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan, and that was a really fun couple of weeks, especially because Marie Kondo was one that we followed not to snark on her, but because we actually had a lot to gain from listening to her advice, or at least I did. RK's kind of a minimalist. I'm kind of a hoarder, so watch that video. I'll link it up in the cards, but I learned a lot from living as Marie Kondo. But after that, those 2 weeks when we lived as Marie Kondo, after that we did a week where we didn't live as a guru. We took the week off to do some giving back and charity fundraising, and then that Friday we decided that we were raising money for a charity, and when we hit certain fundraising goals, we would shave our heads. So the way that worked was that RK was like wanting to shave his head so bad because he has so much hair and lives in New Orleans. He lives in the South, so he was getting really, really warm. So he was like, I need to shave my head immediately. So we decided that he would start shaving his head after the first donation, and then we set goals for the rest of them. So like for me, I started shaving like the back and sides of my head when we hit $100. I cut off the top when we hit 500, and then I shaved the top when we hit 1,000. So we ended up raising $1,100 for Chicago Coalition for the Homeless on that stream, and that was incredible. Thank you so much to everyone who watched the stream, shared the stream, donated, everything like that. My hair's been growing back really, really quick, which is kind of fun. I'm glad it can curl again. But after that charity week, what we did after that was we lived as Seth Godin. We decided that since we had both just shaved our heads, it was a good time to live life as another bald guy. So we lived as Seth Godin for a week, and this week came with a lot of fun book review stuff because this guy has a lot of books. So during this week, we read the books This Is Marketing and Purple Cow, which are two Seth Godin books. He's kind of like a self-help guy, a creative and marketing type of expert. Overall, I didn't see any major red flags, any major problems with him. I didn't notice anything too problematic. Overall, his advice seemed to be pretty good, although my main critique was that it was just too general. So the book Purple Cow that we read, it talked about the idea that like in marketing and in business, you want to find that purple cow. You want to find that thing that's going to stand out among everything else, because if you're like looking at a big field of cows and one of them's purple, that's what you're going to remember, even if the rest of them were all very nice, very good, high quality cows. The one that's purple is the one you're going to remember, right? So that's what this book was about. And it also, that book and This Is Marketing were both about the idea of instead of trying to create a product and then find an audience for that product, instead of like trying to, build a lock to fit a key, instead you make a key to fit an existing lock, right? So the idea was, what is something that an existing audience needs? And for that, since we had done recently an interview with one of our viewers, Amara Franklin, who's a fellow AuthorTuber who runs the small business, the Indie Bookworm, which is a book subscription box, we had her on the show, and she kind of talked about how what she did was find that need in the market, which was people were wanting, independent books, more self-published and small press books and things like that in book subscription boxes, not just the same big 5 publishers. So she decided to fill that need and start up that book box, which, by the way, May is Mental Health Month, right? My novel One Final Vinyl is actually the book selected for that box this month, so check out her. Anyway, so we talked a lot about those concepts from Purple Cow and This Is Marketing. We actually related the concepts from Purple Cow a lot to various properties that we really liked. So right before we did Seth Godin Week, I had just watched the Twilight movies for the first time. So we talked about Twilight and how Twilight worked as a Purple Cow, and like, how was Twilight, how was that movie and book series something that was memorable and lasted over the years. We talked about that a little bit. And then we both also watched the documentary The Orange Years on Hulu, which is about Nickelodeon. So we talked about like Nickelodeon and how that fulfilled the need. It created that key to fit the lock, right? There was an audience of kids out there who were weird ass kids like me who had weirder family circumstances and who liked to be kind of gross and weird and didn't need just like wholesome children's programming, and Nickelodeon filled that need, and that's why that channel is so beloved and so memorable to so many of us. So we talked about Nickelodeon, we talked about Twilight, we talked about what makes things Purple Cows, we talked about marketing. Overall, it was a pretty productive week. We didn't have a lot of like problematic or awful stuff to cover, which was good. The one thing I will say that I wasn't as much of a fan of with Seth Godin was just that while his advice is true and what he's saying is accurate, none of it feels like super new to me. A lot of it felt like it got repetitive after a while, like he was just using a lot of the same examples in his books. But other than that, he was great. After that, we did 2 weeks of following Gary Vaynerchuk, and this one is really exciting to talk about because he's a guru that I hear so much mixed stuff about, and honestly, after following him for 2 weeks, my mixed feelings on him are just even more mixed, which I think is always interesting. So before we delve into what we did during Gary V week, I'm gonna read you guys Gary V's morning routine that we didn't follow for obvious reasons. So this is the book Rise and Grind by Daymond John. This book has a lot of business guru morning routines in it, including Gary V's. So Gary V, when being interviewed by Daymond John, said the following about his morning routine. The one constant in my life is that I still have nightmares. I used to have nightmares when I was a kid, and it was a recurring nightmare. In my dream, my family and I were flying back to Belarus and the plane would crash. Every time, different people from my family, usually 1 to 3 people, would survive. It was very dark, very disturbing, and parents today would find out their kid was having the same recurring dream and send him somewhere to see what was wrong with him. I must have had that dream 50 times, and from the time I was in 2nd grade until I started middle school. So how he had that dream for a while, and then he says, I've never really talked about this before, but you asked me this question in a very interesting way. You asked how I start my day, and you want to know how I end each day, and the answer is the same: perspective and gratitude. So I think that would have been fine if he was making this connection of, you know, I had this nightmare, it gave me perspective, and now, even though I've overcome those nightmares, I still want to be grateful for my family. He takes it a little too far, as many business gurus tend to do. So he says, every morning I pretend that my mother or my wife or one of my children has died. Every day I do this. I did it just today. I let my mind go to this dark, dark place and feel what I would feel if this happened. When I go to sleep at night, I do the same thing, and it doesn't just flash through my mind, this thought. It doesn't just register and then disappear. No, it fills my whole body. What would it be like if my 4-year-old son got hit by a car while he was crossing the street? I force myself to think this way, to feel this way, but I'm very in tune with myself as I do this. And I promise, if you're in touch with your feelings and if you're able to trick yourself into feeling this way, it really hurts. So he talks about how he starts every morning that day to give himself perspective and gratitude, and pretty much all of us were like, no. The H3 podcast, they actually were reacting to Gary V talking about something very similar, which is about expressing gratitude and feeling gratitude through visualizing people you love being shot in the face. And someone in the comments, I think, or one of the co-hosts on that show, called it the depression speed run, which I thought was incredibly accurate. And yeah, so we did not follow that part of Gary V's morning routine. We were like, nope, we are not going to just create existential depression all day. But what we did do was we spent those 2 weeks taking in a lot of Gary V's content, studying him and studying his approaches to content, his approaches to marketing, and finally his approaches to new, as of recently, this is something new, but his approaches to NFTs and cryptocurrency. One thing that we did a lot of during Gary V Week was have discussions in our subreddit. So if you're someone who likes to use Reddit, definitely follow r/yourmorningguru on Reddit, which is where we often, after our show's over, we often continue a lot of the discussions on that subreddit so everyone can get involved. So we continued the discussions there and talked a lot about people's mixed feelings on cryptocurrency, mixed feelings on NFTs, things like that. The The reason we chose that particular week to be Gary V week, which was the first week of May, was that he was launching his NFT that week. So Gary V launched the V Friends NFT, his doodles and things like that. I realize I should probably explain what NFTs are and what cryptocurrency is and all of that in case people need just a brief background. I'm definitely not an expert in this stuff. You guys, a lot of you guys know about like Bitcoin and things like that. So cryptocurrency, you know, basically people or, you know, big mining farms mine it on their computers. It's currency that is, you know, created and sold on computers. It's not, you know, unique to any government or any country. And so things like Bitcoin, things like, in this case, the one he was talking about was Ethereum, which is another type of cryptocurrency. Those were the things that he was talking a lot about that week because he was dropping an NFT. And what an NFT is a non-fungible token, which basically non-fungible meaning like if it's traded, like it's unique, it's one of a kind, it's not a thing, like, it's not a coin that you can trade it for another coin, it's not that kind of thing. NFTs are basically digital artwork of some sort, digital items that you own official ownership of, collector's ownership, but you don't own the copyright to it. Honestly, I don't really see the appeal in spending a ton of money on NFTs because the amount of electric power it takes to generate the code for the individual NFTs and the amount of power it takes to often generate as much cryptocurrency as was necessary to purchase it is often having a really negative environmental impact, so it's just not something I would recommend from that perspective. But on top of that, it just also seems kind of like a waste of money, but you know, to each their own. So Gary V was launching his NFT, which he was called V Friends. So what those were these little drawings that he'd made, and what was interesting about his NFTs were instead of just like owning an official copy of the art, instead what his NFT with the art came a ticket to his conference. Now, I'm not sure how that would work in the long run of a lot of people, you know, they treat NFTs like collectible art where then you can sell them to other people, you can auction them off like you might auction a famous painting or something like that. So if it's a conference ticket, if it includes a ticket for a conference and that has already happened, I feel like that would make the value of the NFT go down. And I really wanted to talk to him about this. So we ended up living as Gary V for a second week after that because he responded to us on Twitter. My best tip of networking or marketing advice, if you want people to notice you, insert yourself into their Twitter fights. So Gary V was in a Twitter argument. Someone was basically talking to him and being like, you know, I used to be a big fan of yours and you were always very skeptical of cryptocurrency and skeptical of NFTs, but now you seem to be really pushing them on your fans with in kind of a manipulative way. It's kind of disillusioned me. And Gary V was basically being like, man, I wish you didn't see it that way. That's not how it is. And so I popped in and was like, hey, Gary V, we're talking about you on our show this week. We'd love to have you on. And he was like, yeah, sure, email me. Sounds fun. And then he followed me back and DM'd me on Twitter. It was pretty amazing. So I emailed him and I DM'd him back twice and he ghosted me. So we never actually got to have that discussion about NFTs and cryptocurrency with Gary V, which is a shame because I really would have loved to have heard his side one-on-one. After that, though, we spent our second week living as Gary V. Like, it was good that we ended up doing a second week as him anyway, because since our first week was so focused on NFTs and cryptocurrency, we didn't get to spend a lot of time living Gary V's life in terms of like the stuff that he's most known for, which is usually his content marketing advice and things like that. So the second week we lived as him, we watched some of his content tutorials, we watched his videos about how to make engaging TikToks, and I made a few TikToks pretending I was Gary V and I wore beanies all the time, which I do anyway, so that was not much of a struggle. A lot of people determined that Gary V is probably the business guru that I'm most like that I am most similar to, just because of the way I tend to dress and also how loud and obnoxious I am. So I can see that, and I thought overall I think his content marketing advice is good. I think it's good that he spends time, you know, telling people about how to create that connection with your audience. During the Gary V weeks, RK and I read his book called The Thank You Economy, and we both DNF'd it because we realized it was incredibly outdated. So I got it on Audible and I started listening to it, and basically the book was pretty obvious customer service advice, like things about how you need to value your customers over profit because that's how you keep customers and form lasting relations, and, you know, going the extra step to keep your customers satisfied and, you know, showing them gratitude. And I agree with everything he said. It was just one pretty self-evident, pretty common sense advice, and two, the book I think came out over a decade ago, and a lot of the stuff in it was about like the importance of making sure your company gets on social media and stuff like that, like stuff that I think everybody knows who's starting a company at this point. So it just seemed pretty unnecessary in terms of like what I could learn from it, because it was basically stuff that anyone starting a company in the decade of the 2020s would already be aware of. So we ended up DNFing that, even though he's an interesting guy. It's fun to listen to him read audiobooks because he goes off script a lot, kind of like Grant Cardone. It's pretty funny. But that's what we did the second week that we lived as Gary V. And then the following week, we lived as Dave Ramsey. You guys may have noticed that this past Friday, I put up the first Deep Dave episode of the Dave Ramsey series, and that this coming Friday, I'm going to be putting up the second episode of that. So it was really fun trying to tie in the business guru we live as with the person that I'm covering on my channel that week. So we did a lot of reactions to Dave Ramsey's videos, and he had some funny shit in there, guys. Dave Ramsey is a huge asshole, and you will know that if you watch my Deep Dave video that I did on him. But Dave Ramsey, he's super Christian, which I think is great. I think everyone should follow the religion that makes them feel most fulfilled and most connected to their family and their culture. That's wonderful. But he's one of those people that takes it to the extreme and like tries to push his religion on other people at work, and like if you are not Christian, he makes you like adhere to Christian principles in your personal life or else you get fired. Anyway, you should look at that in that other video. Today I'm going to cover more of what we talked about when we reacted to some of his videos, which was a lot of starting like student loan payments. Also, he talked about cryptocurrency a little bit. So Dave Ramsey's like a finance guru, right? And a lot of people were like, oh no, Savvy, is Dave Ramsey a problem? Like, I always really liked him. He did a lot to help me pay off my debt. Some of his financial advice seemed pretty good. I'm not a finance expert. RK does work in finance though. As a disclaimer, I'm going to say he always says he's not an expert and is not giving advice. But his reactions were really interesting because he does actually work in that field. So when Dave Ramsey would go off about things like, don't ever invest in crypto, only invest in mutual funds, and RK would kind of go on this little rant about how like mutual funds are actually, you know, not necessarily the best option for investment, which I didn't know. But he would go on about that and that kind of thing. And then Dave Ramsey would talk a lot about like, he really didn't like cryptocurrency at all, which to be fair, I don't really like the environmental impacts that it has, but Dave wasn't really going into any of that. He just seemed to think it was like a young people fad, or at least that's kind of how it came across. And he also went on some really annoying and rude rants about like why he back in like November of 2020, in the height of the pandemic, before vaccines were readily available, he was talking about like how he hated when people tried to make him wear a mask in a store and how he thought it was obnoxious misbehavior and stuff like that. So Dave Ramsey just seems very self-centered. I'm not really a fan of him. One other thing we reacted to was his kind of mixed feelings and fence sitting regarding MLMs, and we want to talk a little bit more about that and about his opinions on everything there. So those were who we lived as for the past couple of weeks. I'm really excited for our next couple weeks as well. We've been taking a lot of audience suggestions for future gurus to follow. Let me know what you guys think of all of these gurus in the comments below, and please let me know if you have any suggestions for future gurus. Another really exciting thing that happened over this last month was that our channel hit 1,000 subscribers. So the second channel just hit 1,000 subscribers. It was really exciting, and we applied for monetization, and then during the middle of Dave Ramsey week, we ended up getting monetized, which was really, really exciting. So our channel's monetized now. It's super fun. Don't forget to check it out if it's something you think you might be interested in. It's a really fun time in the mornings. We kind of chat with everyone who's in the chat. It's like a kind of a mix between a podcast and a live stream. It's podcast content that we have, like, you know, prepared topics that we're going to discuss, but at the same time, we also let the audience kind of lead us where they want to go as well, because we really want it to be a community effort. That's something we really care about. So join us there. Oh no, my glasses are broken! No! Oh, no. Okay. Okay, that's okay. I'll figure it out. Quick side announcement. If you are someone who over the past couple weeks has suggested to me that the Forever Home Friends, my small business based on real rescue dogs and their journeys to adoption, we produce books and plushies. If you're one of the people who suggested that we should have a cat character soon, look no further. We are currently running a contest called the Cat Contest, where you can submit stories about your cat. We're doing a huge search for our next character, so submit us your story about your cat. The Google form to enter the contest is linked in the description below. Deadline is July 31st, and then we will start picking winners after that. So best of luck to you and your kitty. Alright, I'm off to film more videos. I will see you guys again soon, tomorrow morning on the Your Morning Guru channel, 8 a.m. Central, linked in the description below. But in the meantime, don't forget to support small businesses and have a fantastic start to your week. Bye, everyone!
Get you some nuts.
There was lots of memes.
Makes me wonder if I should take up lesbianism.
You guys asked for it.